Back in 1781, I was younger and better looking then, a classy Georgian armchair in the High Street premises of bookseller William Templeton. Little did I know then that the young man who sat on me would soon become a world-famous poet. He, yes, it was Robert Burns, was working and lodging in Irvine, only 5 minutes' walk away. His schooling had given him a love for literature in all its forms, and he had a way with words himself. So William soon offered him a seat. What an honour it turned out to be for me. Where or when I was made, I don't know. Perhaps one of your furniture experts will some day discover my origins. But keep with me, there's lots else that I can tell you. Looking over young Robert's shoulder, I saw what he was reading. Scots poetry, including that of Robert Fergusson, who had died 7 years earlier in Edinburgh. Novels, including Pamela by Samuel Richardson, a racy novel for its time, and the latest chapbooks and broadsheets, local and from the capital. Willie never minded that Robert couldn't afford to buy anything. He enjoyed their friendly conversations, sometimes about books, more often on the ways of the world. A year later, William married Helen Clark, and they treasured me, partly as Robert was becoming famous, and partly because when the bookseller died, Robert and his friend David Siller would make up Mrs. Templeton's accounts. She ran the local stamp office. After their time, their daughter, Mrs. Janet McGavin, kept me safe. She remembered that Robert Burns had many a good laugh and joke while sitting in this chair. When Mrs. McGavin died in 1881 with no children, she was being looked after by a maternal relation, Mrs. Janet Elliott. So then I moved across town to her home on Seagate Street. Janet had adopted her young niece, Margaret Clark, William Templeton's grandniece, from the age of 6 months. When she grew up, Margaret went into domestic service in Glasgow, married Alexander Gilroy in 1885, lived in Maryhill, and returned her aunt's kindness by caring for her in her last days. After which, I moved from Irvine to Maryhill. Margaret testified that this was the chair that Burns always used to sit in. When Margaret and Alexander emigrated to Australia in 1909, they took me with them to New South Wales. I wasn't seasick, and in due course their son, Francis Clark Gilroy, looked after me as the chair that was in the room at the back of the shop and was a favourite seat of the poet. Francis Gilroy and his wife visited Irvine in 1949 and presented Irvine Burns Club with the silk stockings given by Burns to William Templeton and the bookseller's snuff box and dram glass. In 2015, his son, Alexander Gilroy, visited Irvine and arranged for me to be carefully packed and flown from Australia to Germany and on to Irvine, for me to spend retirement in the spotlight in the Wellwood Burns Centre and Museum, only a few minutes' walk from my original home all those years ago.